Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Epidose of the Ketogenic Fasting Project Gone Carnivore. My name is Tom, and I think this will be episode or Epidose number 100. And today's topic is 5 reasons why pizza is poison. Now, I picked pizza to make fun of because pizza's popular, and I think it was my friend Karina had posted an article from a Google autistic forum or something like that. It was talking about pizza being like this universal food that you could get autistic kids to eat. And of course, amongst our carnivore conversations, the idea of eating pizza or feeding it to autistic kids because it's perhaps sort of the few things they willingly eat in a typical diet uh, generated some conversation, to say the least. So I also like to talk about how when I started learning about food and what worked for me, I realized in conversations with other people that a lot of people were only vaguely aware of what was in food, where we get our calories, and why common foods might cause problems. So when I was a little kid, I hated pizza. I learned to like pizza, and then eventually I loved it like most people do. And but I'll tell you, I haven't had a slice of pizza in probably 3 years or something like that, and I'm doing just fine without it, and I don't really miss it. So, anyways, let's get into it. Let me share a slide with you for a little bit of reference. So, 5 reasons why pizza is poison. Top reason, probably something that a lot of people are familiar with, is high gluten flour. Now, you may not realize that some flour has more gluten than others, but they actually make high gluten flour specifically for pizza crust. I'm sure it has other applications, but it is a thing. It's a real thing. And the next thing we're going to talk about is vegetable oils or seed oils, then sugar, particularly added sugars in the crust and the sauce, and then the cheese, which is typically mozzarella. We'll get into that. And then, of course, the vegetables like tomatoes and peppers. So, as I mentioned, somebody had shared this, and it's from Autism Goggles. I don't know exactly what that was, but it says at the top, pizza is a food group, right? So, and I know, I know in the United States, anyways, pizza is a very popular food. It's served all over the place, and it's generally universally loved by adults and children. Just went a little too fast. Here's a sample of high gluten flour, and I'll tell you, the first time I became aware of this, I was actually in a parking lot. I was parking and I saw a delivery truck backing up to a pizza parlor. It was in the morning, so the pizza parlor wasn't even open yet. But they were getting their supplies for the day, and the delivery guy was unloading sacks of this flour. Maybe not this brand, but it said in big letters on a high gluten flour. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that that was a thing, but it is a thing, and it's a popular thing for pizza dough because you see those guys working the pizza dough, stretching it out, getting a nice big flat disc for the crust. That's one of the reasons why they can do that, is because of gluten. I mean, gluten's called gluten because it's gluey, right? So it makes this nice stretchy dough. But as we've all heard, a lot of people are gluten intolerant. Even if they don't have full-blown celiac disease, gluten tends to cause a problem. Gluten is a protein. It's primarily sourced from wheat, but you can find products. We had a lot of rodents running around, a lot of rats where I live. There's a lot of fruit trees. They're doing a lot of construction. A lot of, like this picture you see behind me, is local. There used to be even more cows, more crops, but they get mowed down and they put up buildings. They just built giant warehouses, giant Amazon warehouse, stone's throw from here, and a bunch of other warehouses and stuff like that. And when they disturb that, the rodents have to go somewhere, so they often head into the populated areas, like where I live. Where I live is just a giant neighborhood. Um, it's just thousands of stucco homes with tile roofs, block walls in between them, and the rodents use the block walls like superhighways. And a lot of people plant fruit trees. You see citrus here, lemons and oranges like crazy. Apple trees are common, plum trees, apricots, loquat. There's a lot of Chinese people that move here, and they plant a lot of fruit trees like loquat and stuff like that. And of course, avocado. And rats love all that stuff. So when they get driven out of their natural habitat in the more rural areas or the farming areas, we get inundated with them. So I went and I was looking for something relatively safe that would help control the population. And one of the things I found is they sell corn gluten. Now, corn gluten, the rats eat it, and then it goos up their insides and they die. So there are other sources of gluten. Gluten's often added to foods to raise the protein content, to change the consistency of it, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people may not realize that not only does the crust of the pizza have gluten in it, it has more gluten in it than your average product from a grain. So anyways, and it's added to a lot of food. So another thing I always recommend to people, just read labels. If you read labels and you see ingredients, you raise a question in your own mind about the ingredients. You can always Google stuff or look for a video on YouTube or ask somebody about the ingredients. And that's why I think it's important for people to understand food. And that's one of the reasons why I did this video. If you want to watch a good video, here's one. This was done by Paul Mason. It talks about, the title talks about lectins. Lectins are a class of plant proteins, but he gets into gluten and gluten intolerance in this video. The title of it, for people listening, it is How Lectins Impact Your Health from Obesity to Autoimmune Disease, A Doctor's Perspective, by Dr. Paul R. Mason. He's a physician from Australia. I know my new buddy online, Joe from Australia. He tells me all about Dr. Paul Mason down there. So you can find him on YouTube. I think like this one is references lowcarbdoctors.com.au. I think this was actually published by Low Carb Down Under. They put a lot of videos up on YouTube. So check it out. You can learn a little something. I know I learned a lot when I watched that video. And Dr. Paul Mason is a fountain of information, to say the least. Here's another article. So this is another thing I like to tell people. You can go online. You go to a website like PubMed or PLOS ONE. If you just Google PubMed, PubMed, or PLOS ONE, Public Library of Science, as is known, you can look up and read a lot of these studies. This study is called the title of it is Health Benefits and Adverse Effects of Gluten-Free Diet in Non-Celiac Disease Patients. So for those of you who haven't heard about it, celiac is a disease where the lining of the intestines have a reaction to gluten. The cilia basically have a serious adverse reaction. There's a test for that. But a lot of people who don't have the disease also have a reaction to gluten. So anyways, you can look up stuff like this and learn it just by going to something like PubMed, which is basically just a government-based storage website where published studies are just stored, and you can just go in there and search gluten or high gluten or celiac or whatever, and you can read these studies. And even if you just read the first page of the abstract, it'll help you kind of understand things. And they're really not that hard after you get through a couple of them and you kind of understand how it works and and the vocabulary. Most of it's pretty simple, and you can always ask if you have a question. It's always a good place to start to ask somebody, maybe your doctor. Just talk to your doctor about it. Here's another one: non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Again, gluten is a protein found in grains, and it's in high concentrations in pizza crust. There's a book, Grain Brain, by David Perlmutter, MD. You can listen to this book on Audible, or you can buy a print copy or download it for your Kindle. I highly recommend it. It talks more about these effects and the effects of brain or grain on your brain. And then this one here, Wheat Belly by William Davis, another one, talks about grains, the effect of grains on your digestive tract and also your brain to some extent. Another good book. Again, you can look up these authors like William Davis, MD, and watch a video, or maybe they've done a lecture or something. You can watch that on YouTube, or you can get the audio book. You can get the Kindle version. You can get the hardcover. So on to the next topic. 5 reasons why pizza is poison. The next one is going to be vegetable or seed oils. Now, like I mentioned before, like there's been a pretty good debate between this guy over here. This is Tucker Goodrich. He's done several podcasts with different people. This is a still shot from Human Performance Outliers. This is a podcast with Zach Bitter, who's a well-known long-distance runner. He runs ultra marathons. He's a record holder. He just set a record like a month ago for the fastest 100 miles on a track. Yeah, he ran 100 miles in 11 hours and change. And then he also set the record for the longest distance in 12 hours. He just kept running. So he set 2 records in one race. And it's a fascinating guy to talk to or listen to his podcast. He does a podcast with this guy in the middle. This is Sean Baker. If you're the least bit familiar with the carnivore movement, you've probably heard of Sean Baker. He's a doctor and a carnivore advocate. And they're talking to this guy, Tucker Goodrich. And Tucker Goodrich, after getting very sick, did a lot of homework. And he believes that seed oils or vegetable oils, we usually call them vegetable oils, right? Corn oils, canola oil, peanut oil, grapeseed oil. They're all actually seed oils, even though we tend to call them vegetable oils. So he goes into depth talking about what happens to the human body and how these products aren't necessarily good. I mean, once you squeeze these oils out, they tend to oxidize readily. So once they're outside of their container and they're exposed to the air, they tend to start spoiling. And there's no real reason to believe that we evolved to eat these things. These things really weren't available before. So now in modern times, like I mentioned before, things like cottonseed oil. Cottonseed oil was just too toxic. Cottonseed in general is too toxic. So they basically detoxified it. Then, hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oils, they just add some hydrogen to the fat in order to stabilize it so it doesn't oxidize as fast. It also makes it solid at room temperature. That's where vegetable shortening comes from. And he makes a very compelling argument that this is one of the biggest problems for modern humans, as far as things in their food that cause them ill health. So I mentioned in a previous video how there's a little bit of a debate between Gary Taubes and other people are what's worse, vegetable oils or sugar. Refined grains or refined carbohydrates or vegetable or seed oils. And I think it's hard to say. They both seem to cause a lot of disease, everything from tooth decay to cognitive disorders and disease. And they probably fuel cancers and obesity and heart disease as well, inflammation. So anyways, if you get a chance, look up Tucker Goodrich. I believe he has a book. He's been in a number of videos, and he has a very compelling argument. But there's one more reason why pizza is poisonous. I know back in the day when I was a younger man, I had friends that worked at a popular pizza place, and he was telling me, I think when they made a large pizza, they would pump out a cup and a half of vegetable oil and add to that pizza. So there's a certain amount of oil that's mixed into the dough. There's a certain amount of oil that they pour into the pizza as it's baking. I don't know if you've ever um, had a piece of pizza and seen that orange grease kind of coming off of there. That's vegetable oil. I mean, I'm sure it gets some of its color from things like pepperoni or sausage or something like that. But a lot of that, there's a lot of oil in pizza. And, obviously people like Tucker Goodrich and other people have made a very strong case for the fact that those vegetable oils are very bad for humans. So next thing up is just going to be the sugar content. Potentially all the ingredients could have some sugar added to them when it comes to a pizza. So clearly the crust, the dough, sugar is a common additive, just like, it's flour. There could be egg in there. There's probably some oil in there, stuff like that. They add sugar because sugar tastes good, right? A little bit of sweetness in the bread. And then the sauce, tomato sauces. If you go to the store, you look at the ingredients that are listed. If you go to a pizza place, a lot of them have the ingredients available. They have them on their website. Look in there, see that there's sugar added to the sauces, the tomato sauce, the bread, and so on. And again, I always said that I think our teeth are kind of the canary in the coal mine. And I don't think too many people dispute the fact that sugar is bad for our teeth. Man mentioned before that one of the organisms that does the most damage to our teeth is streptococcus. I talked to my dentist about this. I looked it up too. So there are studies about this, but that's actually one of the major causes of cavities or dental caries is streptococcus. It's also the thing that gives us strep throat. And it likes to live in our mouths, especially when we eat a high carbohydrate diet. And organisms like streptococcus can actually work in conjunction with a fungus like candida. They mutually break down starches to feed themselves. So they're living in the environment of your mouth. You're eating these foods that they like, particularly starches and sugars. The streptococcus is gnawing away at the enamel on your teeth, and the candida is moving into the other parts of your body. I'm sure we've all heard of people getting things like thrush or fungal infections and stuff like that. And so you basically have two potentially sickening organisms helping each other out, being fueled by things like sugar. So definitely something to consider, something to think about, maybe taking out of your diet, and maybe look at pizza a little bit different next time. So the next thing is cheese. Most pizza is topped with copious amounts of mozzarella or mozzarella. And the magic of cheese is not lost on me. Now, originally, mozzarella comes from water buffalo. But if you don't live in Italy or Croatia or someplace like that, it's probably coming from Holstein cows. Holstein cows are the big black and white cows. And the reason why Holsteins are popular is because they produce a lot of milk. They produce a lot of milk, and it tends to be lower in fat. The downside is that Holstein cows produce a protein called Casein A1. Now, this is because there is a mutation in that line of cattle a long time ago. Other cows, other animals that produce milk, like goat, some people like goat cheese, they don't produce the Casein A1. Casein A1 is a protein that is known to trigger allergies and autoimmune diseases. Now, these autoimmune diseases are probably related to leaky gut syndrome or increased intestinal permeability. So it may not affect everybody, but potentially eating a big pile of mozzarella rich in casein A1 proteins could be detrimental to some people's health, or at least cause issues. And of course, lots of people have digestive issues when it comes to dairy. Cheese, probably less than something like milk or something like that, because a lot of times the organisms um, uh, convert proteins and break down sugars like lactose and stuff like that. But milk contains sugar as well. In fact, that's what lactose is, a sugar. So you have both the potential of the lactose and the casein A1 causing problems for people. So that's another reason why pizza might not be a good idea. This was a good podcast. The Fat Emperor, Ivor Cummins, is a YouTuber. His specialty is talking about heart disease and encouraging people to get a calcium or a coronary artery calcium score, which is something I did. I highly recommend checking out his channel. But if you want to follow up on the pizza theme here, look for his podcast number 41. That's the Fat Emperor podcast with Ira Cummins, podcast 41. Low inflammation, high healthy fat living, the way to go. He addresses a lot of these things now with a fellow who did a lot of research. I believe he lived in Iceland. The guest lived in Iceland. I forgot his name, but check it out. It falls right in. And then the next thing is going to be nightshades. So a lot of the toppings that go on to pizza are nightshades, like bell peppers, tomatoes, chili peppers, stuff like that. Those particular types of vegetables, a lot of them are New World vegetables, so they came from the Americas, and a lot of people have not evolved to eat them or don't tolerate them as well. So they have their own set of problems. And of course, who hasn't seen a pizza with bell peppers on it, and of course tomatoes? I mean, we already talked about tomato sauce. Rarely do you see pizza without tomato sauce. But even when tomatoes came from the New World to Europe, even in Italy, they started altering the tomatoes. That's where you get the Roma tomato, which was less irritating because people couldn't eat the skins and the seeds without digestive issues and allergic reactions. So I think a lot of people, they look at a tomato and go, oh, it's full of vitamin C, and look at all this color. We got to eat all the colors of the rainbow, and it's got to be healthy for us. And we don't realize that even the history of tomatoes is problematic. If you go back, you can see that people thought that there was some sort of supernatural element to tomatoes. I think they called them wolf apples or something like that, because they were known to make people sick. So it's only in modern times, the breeding of the tomatoes and stuff like that has kind of brought down some of the responses people have had to them. So anyways, in a nutshell, that's it. That's the 5 reasons why pizza might be poison. So anyways, I really just made this video to help people understand food a little bit better and share a little bit about what I learned about food, and to share with people why the everyday diet is unhealthy, above and beyond just having too many calories or whatever. So anyways, thanks for watching, and please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you would. It really helps trying to get to that magic number of 1,000 subscribers. And so until next time, everybody, I hope you feel better, and looking forward to a great 2020 for everybody. Take care.